Okay, I started. No, not your whole face. There you go. Are you happy now?
I'm happy.
Okay, go get to work. I share conversation about chapters 13 and 14. Parliament, Juanito whispered from beside me on the nest of clothes. Go get to work. You look so good. What? I asked, confused. A group of owls is a parliament, not a brood, she explained. That's chickens. Hens, actually. Oh, like that matters now. I started to move my hand slowly toward the tiny front pocket of my shorts, pulling the piece of silk string out of it without drawing too much attention to myself. Sorry, Juanita said. Do you have the string? Yes, I whispered. I put it in a safe place as soon as Teresita handed it to me, but I need you to wake Peta up without scaring her. Once everyone's awake, you'll have to perform a protective circle around me so they can't get to me while I tie the knots. Okay, Delia and Velia whispered in unison. I could hear the lechuzas whispering menacingly above me, up on top of the roof, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. I unzipped the tiny front pocket of my shorts as slowly as possible, trying not to draw attention to myself. But the minute I pulled out the piece of marked silk thread, the lechuzas launched themselves off the roof and flew into the barn, wailing and screeching. Startled awake by the lechuzas' blood-curdling screams, Peta sat up and screamed almost as loudly as the winged witches. From that moment on, hey, get your conversation on task. The lechuzas descended upon us with all their fury. As they came at us, I saw that they were as big as vultures, and their wingspan was twice their length. Their long, straggly hair streamed behind them like raggedy, moth-eaten capes as they flew at us. But the most horrific parts of them were their faces. They looked like dried up pieces of fruit, desiccated human faces, witches with metallic beaks for lips. The coven of lechuzas squawked and screeched as they flew in and grabbed at us with steel talons, pulling out chunks of our hair, shredding our clothes and scratching our arms and hands and faces as they flew by. One at a time, they soared up into the rafters and swooped down to do it all over again. If they had been less aggressive, less calculating, we might have been able to defend ourselves, but they were so fierce and erratic in their attacks, we never stood a chance. Niñas malas, said one in Mama's voice. Malcriadas, said another in La Llorona's voice. Egoístas, said one in Cecilia's voice. Arrepiéntanse, said another in Teresita's voice. According to them, we were evil children, spoiled, rotten, and selfish. We should repent. They kept chanting over and over again as they scratched at us with their sharpened talons. Repent, repent, repent. Stop, Juanita screamed as she swatted them away with her hands. Stop, stop, we cried as we whacked at them. But no matter what we did or how much we begged, they wouldn't stop. If anything, their viciousness grew even more intense. As they started to abuse us, the rain we had been expecting started to pour down on us through the holes in the roof. There was no escape from the feathers and the rain. The wind picked up, and I could hear thunder in the distance. Anthony, I'm going to take it away if you don't get on task. Gio, sit down. Find one. There's plenty of chairs in here. I could hear thunder in the distance. I remembered the piece of silk thread and realized I was still clutching it, but no sooner had I looked at it than one of the lechuzas clawed it out of my hand. I tried to hold on to it, but the evil bird was too strong. She flapped her wings in my face, slapping my head with her sharp, bristly feathers. I was tugging against her, holding onto the string for dear life, when one of her feathers pricked me right in the eye. An intense pain shot through my left eye like a bullet, and I let go of the string. Taking the string with her, the lechuza flew out of the barn, through the hole in the roof and into the darkness and rain. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, Velia and Delia rolled away from the rest of us, screaming. They had made a mad dash for the door at the other side of the barn. With two lechuzas at their back, they busted out of the barn as if their heels were on fire, never once looking back. Had they abandoned their hermanitas? I looked at the barn doors, noisily slapping back and forth with the force of the storm. I couldn't help but feel powerless. The twins' desertion shattered my hope. Any hope I had left of defeating the malevolent witches, and for the first time on our journey, I wanted to cry. But there was no time for that. With the twins gone, the remaining lechuzas concentrated on the rest of us. Two of them dived so fast and hard into me, they knocked me over. One of them sat on my chest. Another one had Juanita pinned face up against a pile of clothes we had used to make ourselves a nest. Peta was pressed against the wall, shivering, while a lechuza pecked gently at her head, as if it were picking nits out of her hair. You like eating sweets, don't you? The lechuza said with Cecilia's voice, pulled Peta in close until their faces were almost touching. That's because you're a piglet, a little piggy with a piggy nose and a piggy mouth and a piggy stomach. You're a chubby baby. But give me time. I'll put some real meat on your bones, thicken you up, and get you ready to be eaten. My sisters and I haven't eaten much lately. Your big brown eyes look delicious. I bet they taste sweet, slathered with jalapeno marmalade. How do you like your adventure now, you arrogant little twit? A lechuza with Inez's voices asked Juanita as she caressed her face with the bristly feathers of her left wing. What, do you think you're smarter than them? Well, you're not. You dragged them all into this mess with your self-righteousness. Juanita sniffed and hiccuped as she tried in vain to stop herself from bawling. Oh, what's the matter now? Why are you crying? Are you sad? Maybe you should have listened to your older sister. Maybe you should have stayed home and cleaned and cooked like your mother instead of thinking you've got brains. You think you can fool me? The one with Mama's voice asked me. She was sitting on top of me, kneading into my chest with her claws like a cat, laughing when I winced in pain. Answer me, she screamed. But instead of talking, I looked straight into her red, fiery eyes with what I hoped was disdain. What's the matter? Aren't you afraid? Want to run away? She asked. And when I didn't answer, she dug her sharp talons deeper into my chest. The pain was horrendous, and I wanted to scream out, but I held my breath instead. Of course you do. I know how much of a coward you really are. I know how irresponsible you can be. Who's the one who relinquished the piece of thread? Who's going to protect your sisters now? Who? She was shaking me then, grabbing me by my shirt collar and rattling me, like she wanted to loosen the last breath out of my chest. I closed my eyes and started to pray, silently at first and then with more courage and conviction, but my prayers were useless against her. Instead of getting off my chest, she started to laugh, a deep, cackling laugh that vibrated inside my head and made me lose my place in prayer. You, that's who, whispered the lechuza, her rotten breath caressing my neck like a dirty rag, penetrating into my every pore. You, she kept screaming in a parody of Mama's voice, spitting pultured saliva on my face. You dressed like me. You took them away. You left me crying. You lost the thread. Her words, spoken in Mama's voice, pierced through my heart, and I screamed in agony. No, it's not true. It's not. Just when I thought all was lost, Velia and Delia burst through the barn doors, wielding what could only be described as giant metal baseball bats. I don't know what kind of tools they were or where they came from. All I know is they looked absolutely dangerous. Die, the twins screamed as they charged in our direction. The lechuzas screeched angrily, let go of us, and scattered themselves around the room. One by one, they flapped their wings into flight, soaring above us, cursing our names and threatening to take their revenge. You take the pitchfork. I call the rake, I told Juanita. I scrambled to my feet and rushed to the other side of the barn where Peta had abandoned the rusty old tools. You can't hurt us. We're the Avengers, the devil's playmates, the one with La Llorona's voice screeched. You caused too much heartache and pain. You disrespected Cecilia, humiliated her, and now you have to pay. The one with Teresita's voice yelled from the rafters, You'll never get away. The one with Mama's voice screamed as she descended upon me. With all my strength, I batted at her with the brittle rake. She flew around me to avoid getting hurt, but she wasn't completely successful. I'd clipped her right wing, and she screamed in rage, or maybe it was in pain. I shook the feathers out of the rake and prepared myself for the next attack. Draw her close, Velia whispered. She and Delia inched themselves toward Juanita and me. We can take these witches, Velia announced. Watch your mouth, I warned out of habit, although this time I had to agree with her colorful language. These creatures were more than wicked, they were downright malevolent. Repent, 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 the lechuzas screeched as they swooped down on us like a squadron of fire planes. We stood side by side, all four of us, defensively holding up our weapons like ninja warriors, while Peta huddled behind us, defenseless without a weapon to wield. Claws, feathers, and hair flew everywhere during the first onslaught. I don't know where it went. Claws, feathers, and hair flew everywhere during the first onslaught, but through it all, we never quit. We batted and struck and clubbed and raked, and as we did, one by one, the lechuzas flew off. Our weapons hit the barn walls and fell to the ground, squealing like stuck pigs. When Juanita pierced through one of them with her pitchfork, it screamed out, convulsed, and then lay lifeless. So that's how we got rid of most of them. The twins and I clubbed and raked them until they were stunned and dazed, and Juanita finished them off by staking them. By the time we were done, the place was a bloody, feathery, eerie mess. We stood side by side, looking at looking past the settling debris. Hey, calm down. Not daring to talk in case we were dreaming wide awake. I knew I should be shocked, horrified even, that we had just slaughtered a group of beings, not humans perhaps, but living, breathing beings on their own right. But my blood was pumping furiously through my body, washing away any remorse I might have felt. Maybe it was the danger they had posed, or maybe I just was becoming psychotic, but I didn't feel guilty at all. I felt strong and powerful and vindicated. Hey, Nate, sit down and calm down. Why do you have two different shoes on? 7th graders are so weird. Why do you have, just put one set of shoes on your feet.
It looks good though.
It looks so good. I felt strong and powerful and vindicated as I kicked a blood-spattered feathery lump out of my way and headed for our nest in the corner of the barn. You did it, Peta squealed and jumped for joy beside me. You saved us. She shook fuzzy remnants of feathers out of her hair and spat them off her face. Wow, Juanita whispered, still caught in a dreamlike state. We killed them all. Can you believe it? We won. We defeated them. No, we haven't, I said, looking up to the hole in the ceiling above our nest. The rest of them are back. Shh. Up in the sky, behind the rest of the perched, cackling lechuzas, there was a tinge of pink on the purple face of night. Dawn was coming soon. The sun's about to rise, I said. If we ever want to be able to sleep again without fearing for our lives, we have to finish them. I'd lost the silk thread, though. How could we do what Teresita told us would feed the lechuzas? I was bemoaning our plight internally again when I saw Peta disheveled in her best Sunday dress, and I realized we had the solution all along. Come here, Peta. When she came closer, I grabbed the tiny bow at her collar and yanked it off her dress with one hard tug. What are you doing? She wailed. Give that back. I ripped it off cleanly without damaging the dress, but that bow was the thing Peta loved most about the dress. She was understandably upset and reached for the bow. I held it out of her reach until I could untie the bow and smooth it out between my fingertips. I need it, Peta. It's silk, I explained, ripping it so I could pull out a single piece of thread. Peta touched her collar and mourned, this is my favorite dress. Shh, we'll get you a new one once we're back home. Watch my back, I whispered, stepping back to stand between Peta and Velia. Delia and Juanita closed the gap in front of me and stood wielding their farm tools before them, ready for the next attack. Padre nuestro que estás en los cielos. I started to say the Lord's Prayer in Spanish, only this time I was smarter about it. This time I held the thread tightly against my chest. Since there was no way of marking it, I would simply make every knot sit tightly against the last. Teresita hadn't said the knots had to be set apart by any particular amount of space. She only said they had to be evenly spaced. So putting them side by side was, in my opinion, perfectly spaced. Hey! Dude, chill out. You guys, it's not even time to go yet. Go sit down and make sure your assignments are in. No, go sit down at your seats. With every word I spoke, it seemed the rain began to wane. Less and less of it fell through the roof. As the first pair ended, I closed the first knot. The rain stopped completely, and the rest of the lechuzas screeched in pain and flew into the barn. They soared over us, ranting and raving and angrily flapping their wings. They circled and circled, creating a whirlwind of a dirt devil of debris and dark moldy hay that swirled all the way up to the ceiling. The miniature storm swirled and stood before us like a charmed snake, flicking our hair into our faces, wrapping it around our necks, choking us, stealing our breaths. But all the time I stayed focused and prayed. Knot after knot I tied, prayer after prayer I prayed. 7 Lord's Prayers and 7 Holy Marys, and it seemed that each one of those knots took away just a little bit more of the whirlwind's strength. Shorter and shorter it got, and slower the lechuzas flew away, until finally, as I tied the last of the 7 knots, a whisper of daylight broke through the roof, and the whirlwind died away. The 7 remaining lechuzas fell to the floor dead. Their eyes closed, their feathers dulled, and their faces had become clean slates. Then the lechuzas, all 13 of them, vanished into thin air, leaving only downy feathers floating innocuously in the rays of the morning sun.